All right, everyone, welcome back. It is currently 6:49 p.m. Tuesday, October 4th. I told you I was going to try to get multiple podcasts in this week. Uh, Definitely going to get two, might get as many as three this week with baseball postseason coming around. But let's go ahead and start. Let's go ahead and get started. I just wrapped up cooking dinner, so I'd like to get this on the ball before it gets too cold. But let's start with the Thursday night game. Let's go ahead and recap weekend of football. I will say, it occurs to me right now that I say it, I have not given how James and I have done in our picks so far this season. So let me pull those up real quick. In college, I actually texted in this today. In college and NFL, we're dead even. So through 5 weeks of college football, we are both 40-20. This past week was our worst week. It's varied. I mean, for the most part, we've been within two or three, really two correct picks away from each other the entire season. And it's always gone back and forth. I think I went 9-3 the first 2 weeks, and then he went 9-3, and I went 8-4 in week 3, and then it's kind of gone back and forth. But now we're even. This past week, James was 6-6, I was 5-7. One of my worst weekends ever in college. In the NFL, we're also dead even at 35, 28-1. Not a very good number, honestly. I would like to get that number up, that percentage up. I remember when I started doing these weekly picks on my blog, my goal, and when I told James this one time, he laughed at me, but my goal was to hit 75% of my college picks and 70% of my NFL picks. And the college one, he didn't really say anything about, but the NFL one, he was like, dude, you think you're going to hit on, your goal is to hit on 70% of your NFL picks? And this was a couple of years ago, so in hindsight, I'm like, yeah, that was obviously a lofty goal. I'm somewhere around 62% straight up. So now I'm more, let's try to get to 65. But yeah, so we're dead even through the first couple of weeks of the season. I just wanted to throw that out there because I have not shared that. Picks will be later this week. I'm going to try to get James on. I haven't asked him yet, though. So, Thursday night football. Miami at Cincinnati. Cincinnati wins 27-15. A lot of people talking about this game because Tua Tagovailoa got hurt during the game. He got hurt during this game. He got hurt during the Baltimore game last week. During the Baltimore game, it looked an awful lot like a concussion. He kind of stumbled. I didn't watch the game, but from the footage I saw, it looked like he got sacked. And then when he got up, he stumbled, lost his footing. He might have tripped. I highly doubt it. But they say it was a back injury. I have a hard time believing that. And then, so against Cincinnati, he for sure gets a concussion. They've already ruled him out for this week, which I feel like is after the backlash they received for playing him on Thursday night, which I wasn't sure whether or not they would do, and they ended up doing it. That feels kind of like a virtue signal to me, like, let's not play him. Let's pretend we're doing the right thing. They've fired this medical, I don't know what you call it, but the person who's in charge of clearing the players, who I thought I heard that he does not work for the organization. He's more of an impartial person, but they fired him. I don't really stand one way or the other. I'm all for player safety, but sometimes like you just can't avoid concussions. There's only so much the NFL can do. So yeah, I just don't really stand one way or the other. I heard John Middlecoff say today that Miami doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt, and he's probably right. NFL doesn't either, and again, he's probably right because the NFL has swept this under the rug for a long time. Now, when was the last time that they did that? I don't know. Sounds awfully naive. I know it sounds awfully naive to say that, the NFL, wouldn't do that or because of the backlash they received from sweeping this under the rug to begin with. I know how that sounds. So I'm not a complete moron. If I have to lean either way, I would probably say that they pushed Tua to play. But anyway, that's a whole separate issue. In this game, Cincinnati really just took over the game once Tua got hurt. It was still relatively close. Cincinnati's defense played well. They still have a lot to work on offensively, but I think they'll get there. There's still quite a bit of time left. Sunday, Minnesota and New Orleans and London. I did get up to watch this game. I can't remember what time I got up, but I might have missed the first quarter. Um, but kind of an ugly game. Minnesota really didn't look all that impressive. New Orleans didn't look that impressive, although Andy Dalton looked a whole lot better than Jameis Winston. Minnesota, this is now 3 weeks in a row where they're close to being 1-3. They had that great week 1 against Green Bay, which, as I've said, shouldn't be surprising because Minnesota's Super Bowl every year is playing Green Bay at home. Vikings fans don't like it when I say that, but it's the honest truth. So they showed up in week 1, which I expected, but then every week since then, they got blown out by Philly. They barely hung on to or had to come back from behind, I should say, to beat the Lions, and then barely hung on to beat the Saints. So 3 weeks in a row now for Minnesota where they've been pretty subpar after such an impressive performance in week 1. As for the Saints, Saints are dangerously close to being 0-4. I don't think people talk about that enough. They were down, I think, 2 scores against Atlanta in week 1, battled back to win, but then have now lost 3 in a row. Jameis Winston's hurt. They got Andy Dalton out there who, like I said, I don't think Andy Dalton's a bad quarterback. He played well this past week, so we'll see how New Orleans fares going forward. They're not healthy right now, but Dennis Allen just isn't the right coach, I don't think. It's a very different team without Sean Payton. I feel like you can tell that through the first 4 weeks. So Cleveland at Atlanta. This was one I picked Cleveland to win this game. I can't figure Cleveland out. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. I expected them to run the ball well, and they ran the ball really well. Did they? Hang on. I might be thinking of Atlanta. Actually, I think that was a gripe with the fan base. Cleveland didn't run it enough. They ran for 177 yards, which is pretty damn good. Average 5 yards per carry. They should have ran the ball more, from what I can gather. Atlanta, though, I'm sort of taking a victory lap on this one. I said Atlanta was going to be better than people thought in the preseason. They're 2-2 right now, and they're awfully close to being 4-0. They should have beaten New Orleans in week 1. They had a chance to beat L.A. Rams in week 2, and in the last 2 weeks they've won. So Atlanta awfully close to being 4-0, but also awfully close to being 0-4. So kind of a weird spot, but their win total was 4.5 going into this season. They're already at 2, and we still have 14 weeks left to play, but they have 13 games left to play. I think that Atlanta's in a good spot. If they can win 6 games, I feel like if you're a Falcons fan, you got to feel good about that. Cleveland, though, back to Cleveland. They needed to get as many wins as they could until Deshaun Watson comes back. They're right now 2-1. I feel like ideally you would have wanted to be 3-1. And honestly, they really should be 4-0. They beat the Steelers. They should have beat the Falcons. They should have beat the Jets in week 2. They beat the Panthers. So it really hasn't been a tough slate at all. And they still have quite a few games until Watson can come back from his suspension. But 2-2, schedule's going to get harder after these next 2 weeks. I think Cleveland would have liked to have won more games, obviously. But moving on, Washington at Dallas. Dallas is 3-0 without Dak. And I'm kind of sick of hearing the conversation about, is Cooper Rush going to be the new starting quarterback? Or are they going to stick with Dak? You're paying $40 million to Dak, a year to Dak. You're sticking with Dak. Cooper Rush is not the future of this franchise, so I'm kind of sick of hearing that conversation. Dallas, though, a whole lot better than I anticipated. Mike McCarthy has proved me wrong, which I don't think it'll stay that way for much longer. But Dallas playing well. Of course, they've also benefited from the schedule not being that tough without Dak. Washington. I'm honestly shocked Washington won in week 1. Against Jacksonville. Jacksonville has shown to be a pretty good team, and Washington beat them in week 1. Granted, that game was in Washington, or Maryland, technically. But they've lost 3 in a row. They've looked horrible the last 3 weeks. Carson Wentz looks bad. There's nothing good to say about Washington right now. I like Ron Rivera, but I feel like he's on his way out right now. Seattle at Detroit. Very entertaining game. One of the highest scoring games in NFL history. I believe this was also a scoregami, 48-45. I don't think the NFL has ever had a score like that before, which seems hard to believe. I mean, 48-45 is a reasonable number. Like, you see teams score 48 and 45 all the time. Stands to reason that each team could score that in a single game, but from what I believe I read, this is the first time it's ever happened, so kind of cool. Seattle, though. Geno Smith. Love me some Geno Smith. West Virginia guy. He went to West Virginia. I watched him play for 4 years. I love Geno Smith. I love seeing him ball out, which he is. He in terms of his numbers, he's right up there with Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. I don't think it's going to stay that way, but his completion percentage is really good. He's averaging, what were his numbers? Let me pull those up real quick. Dead air. Nobody gets that joke unless you watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So right now he has 6 touchdowns in 4 games. His passer rating is 108, and he's averaging. I'm trying to figure out his yards per attempt, but I don't see that here. His completion percentage is 77%, which is really good. Yards per attempt is around 7.9 this year. So he's off to a really good start. Again, I highly doubt it's going to stay that way, but good for Geno. Love me some Geno Smith. Seattle, I didn't expect this. They're proving me wrong right now. They've exceeded my expectations. They've won 2 games. I didn't think they'd win 2 games to this point. I actually think I had them winning 4 games in the preseason. They're already halfway there. So unless they completely fall off the tracks these last 14 weeks, I think they're going to be an all right team. They're going to win 5, 6, 7 games. The Lions offense is really good. The problem is their defense is really bad. I believe the Lions have only been outscored by 1 point. It's like 141 to 140. Like, they've been in every game. Their offense has scored points in every game. The problem is their defense can't stop a cold. And that's going to be a problem because you still have to play Kirk Cousins. You still have to Kirk Cousins twice. You got to play Aaron Rodgers twice. I thought Detroit would be in a better spot. Right now they're 1-3. I might have had them at 2-2 at this point in the preseason, but 1-3 is not ideal. And their defense obviously is really bad. Tennessee at Indianapolis. It's time to admit I'm going to go ahead and sell all my stock in Indianapolis. I thought this was going to be a team that would win the AFC South. The Colts have some good players. I like their offensive line, but they're just not dynamic enough. They don't have dynamic players on offense. They never really had dynamic players in the secondary either. Pass rush is kind of iffy. And then Matt Ryan just hasn't played well. Jonathan Taylor got hurt during the game too. September. I know September is always Frank Reich's worst month as a head coach. But this is troublesome. They're 1-2-1, I believe. Yeah, 1-2-1. They just lost to Tennessee. They tied with Houston. They did beat Kansas City, although that's looking more and more like a fluke. I'm selling my stock in Indy. I don't see this team making the playoffs, but you never know. I mean, I think a few years ago Frank Reich and the Colts were like 1-5 and finished 10-6 and made the playoffs. So you never know. But right now, the Colts aren't a good team, and I think Frank Reich might be gone if this continues. Tennessee, they dug themselves out of a hole. They started 0-2. They're now 2-2. I like their matchup this week to get to 3-2. Back from the dead, Tennessee Titans. I thought they were done. Hats off to you. I should have expected it. Mike Vrabel's too good of a head coach to let that team to keep sliding. Chicago at the Giants. Not a very good game. 20-12 was the final score. Justin Fields continues to struggle. He only had, I think that today or on Sunday, he had his most completions. Let me look here. Yeah, he had 11 completions, which is his highest all year. The problem is he was 11 for 22. No touchdowns. So he's just he's not that good. And it is hard to get an evaluation on him because Chicago's offensive line is terrible. They really don't have very many good pass catchers. They do have some decent running backs though. But as Big Cat would say, go to the triple option. The only reason why Chicago has been in games is, one, because the schedule has been very favorable. They got some weather luck with a monsoon in week 1 against San Francisco. And then they've played the likes of like the Panthers and the Giants, and I forget who else they have played. The Texans. I don't know if they played the Panthers. Sorry, Carolina. But I know they played the Giants and the Texans. And yeah, they beat one, lost the other. Bears just aren't that good. I will say their defense has been pretty good through the first couple of weeks. The Giants, Daniel Jones got hurt during the game. That's not good. But they have to be the worst 3-1 team I've ever seen. I don't want to pick on the Giants. It's just the truth. They're 3-1, which pops on paper, but they're not that good. They've had the benefit of a very favorable schedule to start the season. Now we're really going to find out how good the Giants are. They got to go to London and play Green Bay. If they win this game, hey, maybe they can win 8-9 games. I don't know. But I don't think that's going to happen, especially if Daniel Jones is out, which right now I think is probably the case because I got a lot of updates today that the Giants were shopping, or not shopping, but looking into quarterbacks off the street. So I would imagine that Daniel Jones is not going to play this week. Jacksonville at Philly. I thought Jacksonville could make this a game, and it looked like they were. They got out to a 14-0 lead and then blew it. Philly outscored them 29-7 the rest of the way. So Philly won and covered, which is impressive. I still think Jacksonville's a pretty good team. I still think Jacksonville might be the best team in the AFC South. Weather was also an issue in this game, which is why Trevor Lawrence, I think I heard he fumbled 4 times. Can't have that, man. But yeah. They have talent. They're well coached. I think Jacksonville's going to be okay. Philly, James is obviously really excited about the Eagles. I have my reservations right now. I shouldn't say they haven't played anybody because they kind of have. The Vikings are a pretty good team. I don't think the Jags are that bad. So it's not like they haven't played anybody. But I feel like they're playing their best football right now, and I don't think it's going to stay that way. Teams typically get hurt. Teams figure them out. Other teams figure them out as the season progresses. So I think I think this is more Phillies off to a hot start, and hats off to them for doing that. But I'm just not buying that they're really one of the top teams in the league right now. Although right now they are the best team in the NFC. We'll see if that stands come December. The Jets at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh made a quarterback change in this game to Kenny Pickett, which clearly energized the Steelers, but Pickett did not play well. He threw 3 interceptions coming off the bench in the game. Mike Tomlin. I like Mike Tomlin, but this feels like it's going to be his first losing season as a head coach. The Jets haven't really beat anybody. They beat Cleveland and Pittsburgh, 2 teams that. Oh, big news! Aaron Judge finally gets his 62nd home run. I'm going to talk about that here in a bit. The Jets, they beat Cleveland on the road. They beat Pittsburgh on the road. They did get Zach Wilson back. Can't figure out whether or not they're decent or good or just bad. I think they're somewhere between bad and decent right now. Bills at Ravens. I picked the Ravens to win this game. They had the game won and blew it. Hats off to the Bills. I shouldn't have doubted our boy Josh Allen. I did, and I've been burned for it. So, Bills, there's a reason why I didn't overreact to their loss last week. I still think they're a really good team and the best team in the league right now. Ravens, Lamar Jackson's playing well. I don't have very many bad things to say about the Ravens. They had the game won. They gave it up. They're still a really good team. They got to get healthy. They do have some holes defensively. But Lamar Jackson's playing really well. If the season ended right now, I think Jackson is the MVP. Chargers at the Texans. I picked the Texans to win this game. I kind of went out on a limb, though. The Texans, the Chargers' injury report was astronomical. I didn't expect everyone to play, and I know a few of them did. Justin Herbert was one of them, which I figured he would probably play. But I picked the Texans. Game was in Houston. The Chargers were banged up. I took a shot. I failed. You're going to have that. Texans battled back. They were reminding me a lot of last year's Detroit team that was just kind of competitive in almost every game. Came up short a bunch of times and finished, I think, 13-1 or something like that. So I think the Texans are going to be about the same. They can't get over the hump right now. I think that'll change. They'll win 3, 4, 5 games this season. Chargers needed a win. They couldn't afford to go to 1-3, so now they're 2-2. I really don't feel better about this team going forward, but they really needed a win. And they got one. Arizona at Carolina, that felt like the nail in the coffin for Matt Rule. They won I think they won in week 3, and I was like, okay, well, that'll save his job. And then they get Arizona at home in week 4, and that's a game you need to win, man. And they didn't do it. They lost to Cliff Kingsbury, who I don't think is a very good coach. I've been very vocal about that. So Carolina, I think, is in big trouble. I would imagine Baker Mayfield's going to finish the season in Carolina. Is going to finish the season as the starter in Carolina. I don't see them making a quarterback change right now. But Matt Rule feels like his days are numbered. That he really needed to win that game this past week, and he didn't. Arizona, I still think Arizona's pretty bad. They're 2-2, I think. Let me look here. Yeah, 2-2. I still think Arizona's pretty bad. Their wins have come against the Raiders, which have disappointed so far, and the game-winning play was kind of a fluke. Fumble return for a touchdown in overtime. And then Carolina's not a very good team. Probably about to fire their head coach. So I don't think Arizona has really turned a corner at all. New England at Green Bay. This game should not have been as close as it was. Green Bay struggled offensively. That was one of the worst games I've ever seen from Aaron Rodgers, which when he throws a pick six, it's going to be a bad game because Rodgers typically doesn't throw pick sixes. He threw one against New England. And when that happened, I was like, okay, I guess this is going to be one of those days where we're not going to show up or it's going to be a dogfight. It was a dogfight. Credit to Bill Belichick for uglying the game up. New England, though, was down to its third-string quarterback at one point, Bailey Zappi, who did make some throws in the game. But that game should not have been that close. Green Bay really should have dominated the game. They did run the ball well, but New England ran the ball well, too. I really could nitpick Green Bay all day, but all I got to say is that game really shouldn't have been that close. Shouldn't have gotten to overtime even. Broncos at Raiders. Raiders finally get their first win of the year, which is huge for them. They couldn't afford to go to 0-4, and they were too talented to go to 0-4. This might save their season. They might bounce back from this. Still a long way to go. But the Raiders really needed that win. Broncos continue to struggle offensively. Russell Wilson, I don't think he had a good game in this one. No, he wasn't too bad. 17 for 25, 2 touchdowns. Yeah, not horrible. But Broncos continue to struggle offensively, which has been a pattern for them. I don't know how much longer it's going to be that way, or to the point where you hit the panic button for the Broncos offense. I know they just lost Javonte Williams for the year, which is a huge loss. Sunday Night Football, Chiefs at Bucks. Chiefs are really good. I debated putting them at number 1 in my power rankings, but Buffalo showed me a lot against Baltimore. Still looked pretty good. But the Chiefs, that final score, I don't think was indicative. It was 41-31 was the final. I don't think that final score was indicative of the play on the field. I think Kansas City dominated that game from start to finish. Tampa's offense, I think they're going to figure it out eventually, especially when they get healthy. But, yeah, Tampa's just not that good of a team right now. They are defensively, but not offensively. Kansas City felt like they sent a message. Tampa humiliated them in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and they bounced back. Or not bounced back, but they showed up, had that game circled, and they wanted to get payback for that game, and they did. Rams at Niners. Shanahan continues his dominance over Sean McVay. I believe I read that this is Shanahan has won the last 7 meetings between the two coaches, and his record against McVay I think is like 8-3 right now. I never understood why so many people were picking the Rams in this game, especially with the game in San Francisco, or Santa Clara technically. When you consider Shanahan's, head-to-head record against McVay, and the game was in a home game for the Niners. Didn't understand why so many people were picking the Rams. But the Niners, I didn't panic. Well, I did a little bit, but the Niners look like the best team in the NFC West right now. And I think it's going to go back and forth between the Rams and Niners pretty much all season. But the Rams have their issues offensively, especially on the offensive line. If they play teams with a really good defensive front, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. And they're right now 2-2. Yeah, 2-2. That might have been what I had them in the preseason. But Rams, I think McVay's going to figure it out. I think Stafford's going to figure it out. But that was not a good performance, and they just have not played all that well offensively this season. And then, Niners look good. They bounced back, which I expected from Kyle Shanahan. So that is week 4. Sorry, my allergies are acting up the last couple weeks. Let's go to college football, where it was a fairly busy weekend. Let's start with Michigan. Took care of business against Iowa, won and covered. Didn't expect that. I thought the Hawkeyes would find a way to keep it close. Ole Miss beat Kentucky. No, I did pick Kentucky to win that game because Ole Miss they really hadn't played anyone so far. I wasn't sure what to expect, and by God, they delivered. So hats off to Lane Kiffin. Oklahoma got trounced by TCU, and I do mean trounced. 55-24. Oklahoma must not be that good because I don't buy TCU. I've seen Max Duggan play. I refuse to believe that Sonny Dykes has made that much of a difference with him. I'm putting this more on Oklahoma has a lot of work to do. Purdue beat Minnesota. Just when I bail on Purdue, they win this game, and now I think they're in the driver's seat to win the Big Ten West. That game might decide the Big Ten West division and who plays, likely Ohio State or Michigan, in the conference championship game. And I think right now the Boilermakers have that advantage. They're going to need Minnesota to lose a couple more games, though. Utah trounced Oregon State. I didn't think it would be that bad, but I did expect Utah to win. Alabama bested Arkansas by 23 points. The spread of that game was 17 points, and a lot of people, I think, took Arkansas to cover. I did not. I said I think Bama's going to pop this week, and they did, even without Bryce Young, who exited the game in the middle of the game. And the game was close at one point. It was like 28-23, late third quarter, early fourth quarter, and then I didn't change the channel, but I put my phone down, felt like I blinked, checked the score again, and it was 49-23 or something like that. So it got out of hand it got out of hand quickly for Alabama. I don't know why. I can't talk tonight. Oklahoma got the better of Baylor. Another one I didn't expect. Baylor really struggled offensively. I don't know if Baylor's not that good, Oklahoma State's that good. Right now I'm leaning on Oklahoma State is that good, which I didn't really expect. Spencer Sanders also played really well, which he has typically done poorly against Baylor. He responded this week, played pretty well. Oklahoma State, I think they're looking like the top team in the Big 12. Not really saying a whole lot, though. Wake Forest beat Florida State. Did not expect that. I picked the Seminoles. Mississippi State got an upset on A&M. Not really an upset, though. I think if you looked at the spread of the game, I think Mississippi State was favored. But A&M, I think Jimbo is in trouble. I think that A&M fan base is growing restless. They're currently 3-2. They got Bama this week. They're going to be 3-3 probably. If he can win 8 games, that might be enough to keep his job, but I'm just not so sure. And I shouldn't say I'm rooting against him because I'm not, but Jimbo's a West Virginia guy. I kind of hope he comes back home. Georgia barely survived Missouri. Very shocking. I don't know what to make of that. I think Georgia's just been sleepwalking the last couple weeks, relying on talent. Clemson beat NC State. I took the upset there. NC State's clearly not there. I thought they were as a program. They're not. Clemson took care of business. They said, hey, we're back. We're back in charge in the ACC. And that's really all I feel like touching up. I'm not going to – I could bitch about West Virginia all day long. I'm not going to do that. Y'all don't care about that. I hardly care about them at this point, but embarrassing showing against Texas. So looking like another year where I just pay attention to Green Bay. So the big news is that Aaron Judge has passed Roger Maris in the single-season home run list. This is an unpopular opinion, but I consider Aaron Judge now to be the legitimate single-season home run king. Sorry, but I don't recognize – I know Major League Baseball does, but I don't recognize Barry Bonds, I don't recognize Mark McGwire, and I don't recognize Sammy Sosa. Those guys cheated. I think their record should be stricken from the book. Roger Maris was the last legitimate champion. Aaron Judge tied him, and now he has surpassed him. Unless he's doping, which we won't know until later. But I consider Aaron Judge now to be the single-season home run king. A lot of people disagree with that. James disagreed with that when I told him. Even my buddy Steven, who I'm going to try to get on the show this week, disagreed with that. Well, he didn't disagree. He kind of was yes and no. He disagreed because on paper, it still belongs to Bonds, and then McGwire and Sosa are after him. I don't recognize it. So, Aaron Judge, hats off to you, my man. I'm hoping Albert Pujols got to 700. I'm hoping he sticks around to break Barry Bonds' record, but I would imagine this is probably his last go. Another thing I want to touch up on before I go is this whole business with Tom Brady. I hate that we, the public, are finding out about stuff about his personal life. And I get it. You're going to have that when you're in the spotlight, as a 7-time Super Bowl winning quarterback, future Hall of Famer. His wife's a supermodel. He's going to be in the spotlight. I just hate that we're finding out details about their personal lives and their marriage and the process. As someone who has gone through, not personally, but has seen people go through this process of a divorce, it's an ugly process. It's not something to be made fun of. It's not something, to take lightly. It is a very serious issue to me. So I hate that we're finding out that Brady and Giselle have allegedly hired divorce lawyers, which that's kind of been hinted about since he left the team during training camp. I hate learning it. Tom, I feel bad for you, my man. I don't really side. James was saying today how he sides with Tom Brady, obviously. And, how he can't stand Giselle. I'm both ways. Look, I can see Giselle's point of view. I see Tom's point of view. Tom is saying, look, I want to keep playing. Giselle's saying, what more do you have? Like, you have nothing else to prove, man. You've done everything. It's a shame. I feel like, and Giselle, I feel like, has put her life on the back burner. She's basically raising these kids by herself for about 6 months. Not easy, I'm sure. So I get both sides. I just hate that we're all finding out about this. This is something that should be private, and it's a shame that it's the other way around. So I'll end on that note. Actually, is there something positive I can end on? Yeah, let's end on something positive. Rings of Power, Amazon show based on Tolkien's work. Had its best episode so far, episode 6. Loved it. I actually got it on the screen right now. As for going forward, I'm really looking forward to seeing how they go. The last couple episodes have been really good for Rings of Power. Definitely the last two. I can see where they're going now, which I couldn't do in episodes 1 and 2. House of the Dragon continues to be really good. It's not as good as Game of Thrones. Like, the high of it so far has not been as good as Game of Thrones. However, it is just consistently good throughout the show. It's solid as a rock. Really good episode this past week. Miguel, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, Sapochnik, directed it. And go look at his resume. He directed some of the best episodes of Game of Thrones. He directed the pilot, I guess you could say, of House of the Dragon. He directed this episode. Unfortunately, it sounds like this is his last episode with Game of Thrones. I don't know if I believe that. It's definitely his last episode with House of the Dragon. I'm hoping he shifts to this Jon Snow spinoff, which I'm still kind of on the fence about whether or not I'll like it or not. And my friend William Snoddy gave me some shit for that this week, saying that I have a miserable life. How can I, keep being so negative about all these shows? Because I had some negativity toward Rings of Power. I wouldn't say I've been proven wrong, but for this Jon Snow show, I'm like, I don't think it's really necessary. What more is there to tell? And he gave me some shit, and I just said, what more is there to tell? His story is ended. It's like following Frodo to nerd moment here. It's like following Frodo to Valinor after destroying the ring. Who cares? Just let him go. Like, his story is done. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this Jon Snow show, but if Miguel Sapochnik goes to that show, I think we're going to be in a pretty good spot. So anyway, I'll wrap it up there. It is now 7:26. So like I said, I'm going to try to get James and definitely Steven. I'm going to try to get James on the show this week. If not, it'll just be me again. I'll go over picks later in the week, maybe Thursday for Friday. So I'll see y'all later.